Hello, welcome to episode 47 of The Geekly. My name is Jules.
I'm Leks. Today we are doing Stranger Things Season 3, Krypton Season 2, Episode 4, Swamp Thing, Episode 6. Plus, we have our Fantastic Four fancast. First, let's start with a little Week in Geek News. I went to London Pride, and so hello to anybody I thrust a button at London Pride. We'll also be showing up at Manchester Pride in August with our fancy new Pride buttons. It took us a while to get them going, but they look really sweet. I'm so excited.
They look really good.
Yeah.
You've done very well there. That was great, and you handed out a load of buttons.
Yeah, just 5 minutes they were all gone. People, and it was so great because I was just thinking 10 years ago you go up to somebody and say, hey, there's this geek thing, and they're like, oh no, it's not for me, whatever. The number of just random people who were like, oh my god, I love geek stuff, and it was so affirming. I even got a kiss from a random drunk lady as you do at Pride.
Awesome.
So yeah, what have you been up to?
This week I'm trying to get into the top 5% globally of Crash Team Racing's online thing that they're doing. It's called the Nitro Tour, and if you get in the top 5% globally, you get a special limited edition cart. I think currently there are about 725,000 people playing, and I'm in the top 60,000. So I'm on course to get this amazing cart. And the online is pretty fun. It's pretty limited, but I'm having a good time doing it. I think there's about 2 weeks left, so I'll let you know where I am next week and the week after. And if I get this gorgeous cart. I actually finished on the podium for the first time ever yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, that is incredibly competitive. There's some people on there that are just insane. They will win the race by 15 seconds to second place. But let's move on to the thing I've been really looking forward to, our Fantastic Four fancast. Now, last week...
just to recap from last week, I think you won your casting 1 by 1. It was 10 versus 11.
I think we both did pretty well last week. We had some really nice feedback from people. We also had some people that were just no, trash.
Yeah.
just the worst.
You guys suck.
Go home.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's see how we do this week.
I don't really know that much about the Fantastic Four, so in preparation for this, I set about doing some research. I watched all 3 Fantastic Four films. The older ones have not aged well at all.
You say all 3. There are actually some from the very, very early 90s as well. At least one from the very early 90s.
I didn't go back that far. I just went to the 2000s, 21st century Fantastic Four films. I'm going to start with Sue Storm. I actually chose this based on the depiction of Sue Storm in the 2015 film. So I went with Felicia Day, who is from The Guild. She's been on Supernatural. She's been on Eureka. She does all kinds of stuff. She's super nerdy, really awesome, and I think she could really bring a bit of humor to the role as well as deal with the serious sciencey bits.
I went with Kristen Bell. I see her as someone that's very warm, very compassionate. To me, she feels like the glue that kind of holds everyone together. Yeah, very kind, warm individual. Can do funny, can do straight stuff as well.
So who did you have for Johnny Storm?
For a long time I had Zac Efron. A very long time I had Zac Efron. But then I decided to go for Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I just feel like he's got the build, he's got the acting ability, because I feel like Johnny Storm can be quite pompous at times. I'd say the Chris Evans version is quite a pompous guy, in part showing off, making patterns in the sky. I do have to
say, Chris Evans, I keep having to remind myself he's not actually Captain America, so when I was watching him as Johnny Storm, I was just thinking, oh my god, it's a completely different person.
Yeah.
It's no shit, he's an actor, that's what he does.
Yeah. Again, I've gone for a team that they are, hitting the ground running. There is no origin stories anywhere here. And I think he could do the tail end of pomposity and then kind of as if his character's in the middle towards the end of the arc of becoming a more rounded individual. So I think he could do maybe both sides of the Johnny Storm scale. Who's your Johnny Storm?
I chose Jensen Ackles from Supernatural. And a large part of that was, again, the pompousness, kind of, his character in Supernatural is very similar to Johnny Storm in that, he's a very sort of inflated opinion of himself. But also, the chemistry between him and Felicia Day is, really amazing. They have, great banter, just a great interaction with each other, and I could totally see them as brother and sister, and having that kind of bickering but loving relationship. With Reed is where I start to diverge from.
Tell us why.
Well, alright, so I was looking at actors for Reed Richards, and they all just looked the same. It was just this bland hegemony of white, square-jawed faces, and I just thought yeah, I don't really care about any of these guys. So I started looking at actresses, and for Reed, and she's totally going to be a lesbian. The Reed-Sue romance is still in my fan cast, but my Reed Richards is Salma Hayek.
Very nice. I like Salma Hayek.
Yeah, she's awesome. And I mean, again, she's another actor who does both comedy and serious stuff really well, so she has that flexibility and, you know, breadth of talent.
I would pay to watch that film. I've gone for someone that when I think of Reed Richards, I don't often think of Reed Richards. I think about, like, the salt and pepper hair. I think about someone quite tall. With obviously he has the ability to stretch, but I think someone like naturally quite tall. Someone that can do. You could imagine him in a room with Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo. You know, a real brains trust kind of idea. John Hamm.
I could see that.
Yeah. It's quite a safe choice. It's not a kind of Salma Hayek choice. It's quite safe, but I think I could believe him being the third man of that kind of trinity, all working on something, not wearing like their superhero outfits or in their superhero forms, but actually just working on the science together. Quite a commanding individual. I like him a lot in Mad Men, and I know after seeing him in a lot of Saturday Night Live sketches with Kristen Wiig, who is my Mystique, let's not forget, so hopefully they'll have some crossover. He can do comedy as well, and yeah, I'm quite happy with that choice. He seems like a good kind of leader of a team, like a good figurehead for a team.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now, we didn't talk about this beforehand, but when I was casting The Thing, for a long time I had Kevin James. I saw him in Here Comes the Boom. He plays like a teacher-turned MMA fighter. I thought, yeah, get him in like a Mark Ruffalo, whatever suit they do to turn him into the Hulk. Then I saw the perfect person, and it's a woman, and it surprised me, and it's Melissa McCarthy.
I considered Melissa McCarthy for a really long time. I did not ultimately pick her. It seemed like the most obvious choice, so I kind of wanted to go in a little bit of a different direction.
I can see her doing like Ben Grimm because she's done Sean Spicer very well, but in my mind, for the entirety of this film, she is the Thing, rather than being Ben Grimm. And her in, again, like a Mark Ruffalo mocap situation. Yeah, I think she'd be really good at it. Her voice is kind of the voice of a mimic, and I think she could bounce her voice around as well. And so, yeah, Melissa McCarthy's makes up the final member of my team. Who is yours?
My Ben is Helena Bonham Carter.
Goddamn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just went for it. I was like,
I can see her as Ben Grimm.
Yeah, you know, I was just looking through actresses, because it is kind of a difficult role to embody as an actor, because you basically, like, are just a rock. But she's, you know, she's quirky, she's weird, she's a little bit monstrous herself.
About 3 years before Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, was that the first one she came into for the film? Somebody said who would be a great Bellatrix Lestrange, and I said Helena Bonham Carter. That's the only time in my entire life I correctly cast something. I would love to see her as the Thing. I'd love to hear like the voice as she's smashing things. I would
be very excited about this film. Victor Von Doom. I went with John Cho.
John Cho, okay.
Yeah, like both The Thing and Doom were a bit tricky for me to cast, because I know even less about, despite the fact that Doom was in 2 of the 3 movies that I watched, I know less about him than I do the Fantastic Four, and I feel like my knowledge base on the Fantastic Four is pretty limited. I really like John Cho. I think he could do a villain really well. He's got that sort of nice guy aura to him, but, you know, I always sort of like it when the nice guys play bad guys. I watched Star Trek Into Darkness a few days ago. Him when he first sits in the chair, where he talks to Kirk about, I don't know if I've got the ability to sit in the chair. He sits in the chair, and when he talks to the guy, John Harrison at the time, before we know he's Khan, he's like, do this. Do not test me. If you do, you will lose, or something like that. And it is incredibly menacing. And Bones, Carl Urban, looks at him like, Sulu, remind me never to piss you off. And I really think he could do a great job as a villain. We don't really get him as a villain, do we? I don't think we've ever seen him as a villain, but I think there's the untapped potential in there for him to be an excellent villain. What are we next seeing him in, Cowboy Bebop? I think so, yeah. I think I remember you sort of gushing about that several weeks ago. Yeah, I like John Cho. I don't have enough John Cho in my life, actually. It was a shame he was in the shittiest episode of The Twilight Zone. Yeah, the presidential one. It was kind of a race to the bottom for a lot of those episodes. So it's difficult to tell, but he was wasted on that episode. I've got to be honest, this is probably the first name on, and I've really, as a person that's maybe a bit typecast in my mind, I thought, who's going to play this great Marvel villain? I know, someone that's already played a Marvel villain really well. And I went with Michael Fassbender. I know it's a very similar role. It is a very similar role. Yeah, Magneto to Victor Von Doom.
both. I think they're both kind of Eastern European. Magneto's German. I think Victor Von Doom's from Markovia. I think it's like a fake country. And I just thought it's going to be an arms race. He's just come out of that Marvel franchise. People are going to want to get him for something else. Maybe Kevin Feige needs to like bring him in for the Fantastic Four. We know he can do it, but it's not exactly an adventurous choice. But I think he'd do it well. I
think he would do it well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the kind of gravitas and the regalness almost. You know, like he's a very noble. He has a very noble bearing. Yeah. And he's able to be very menacing with a smile, which I think is a great trait for any villain to have.
I think my favourite Fassbender film is Frank, which is actually a comedy. But when I think about the entirety of his Marvel work, from First Class all the way up to Dark Phoenix, I've got to be honest, I didn't really enjoy many of those films. I feel like he was wasted in the role. I think he's a lot better than 99% of what was given to him. And so I just think that with the Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige supervision, I think it would be a lot better material. And I think he would elevate himself. It would elevate him, and he would elevate the material. And I think it'd be a good union. Yeah, those are our teams.
Cool.
Tell us how much you hate them on Twitter.
Yeah, so I will be posting them tonight and tomorrow, shortly after the episode airs. You'll be able to find them pinned to our Twitter profile. Vote for which team you think is the best or
least worst.
Least worst,
as the case might be.
As the case may be. If you want to mix and match, give us your lineup of who you think should be cast as the Fantastic Four. We'd love to hear your suggestions. And
we'd also love you to tell us who you would like us to fan cast next time. We're going to try and do these as regularly as we can. So who would you like us to fan cast?
Yeah, just send us a tweet at GeekNerdPod and tell us who to fan cast next.
Should we start with Stranger Things?
Let's start with Stranger Things. I have to be honest, I don't really get all of the hype around this show. I mean, I think most of it has to do with nostalgia. A bunch of 80s kids are like, oh my god. And I just keep thinking of, Jules sent me this rap video recap.
I still haven't watched that, actually.
It is hilarious.
I thought you'd love it and still haven't watched it myself.
It is absolutely hilarious. And like one of the lines is, we feel better because of things we used to have. And I think that's very much what the appeal of Stranger Things is. Personally, for me, I did not feel like it needed more than one season. Like the first season was good, it was entertaining, and yeah, they should have just left it there. And I think this season ends with the same problem. It was a very natural ending, and yet they've done kind of a teaser for season 4 at the very, very end, and it's just like, come on, people, you need to know when to stop.
It's funny you mention that. I greatly appreciate the show. It looks and sounds great. It's such an incredibly stylized world, but it's not really my bag at all, and I'll explain why shortly. This whole season felt to me like, oh god, they've given us a third season. What do we do? Well, let's just say the thing didn't die, and let's just have them kill it again, or solve that exact same issue again, which I take great exception to. Just if one season works, sometimes you can just end it after one. But I heard today that in the first 4 days that this was available, it was looked at over 40 million times, or it was looked at by 40 million separate accounts.
Wow.
Which is, there probably going to be 10 seasons of this, who are we kidding? I measure this series kind of in 2 ways. Style-wise, aesthetic-wise, tone-wise, I give it an 11 out of 10. It's, kind of unrivaled. They've thrown so much money at this and it just looks superb. Regarding the story and regarding what we're actually being given here, it's kind of what you like. If you like Goonies style, hormone-filled, teen, angsty, young adult teenagers getting involved in supernatural scenarios that they're way too young for, this is absolute heaven. For me, my least favourite trope in all of film and TV, I think I've told you about this before, it's the idea that the kids know more than the adults do in their world. The kids in the show, they're really dumb kids, and they are inexplicably smarter than every adult they come across. And they just can't help but stumble across these huge supernatural issues, like, overhearing the Russian message.
I found, the whole Russian thing was just ridiculous. This season, there were really good moments in it, but then it would just bounce to completely ridiculous. The 3 of them, Dustin, Harrington, and the girl, accidentally stumbling onto this super secure Russian site that was housed in a mall, was just really?
When Dustin and Erica went down to the Russian base, managed to spring Steve Harrington and Robin, I think her name was. So you're telling me these 2 kids got into all 4 of them got into the base, moved around the base before 2 of them were captured, 2 escaped, went away, came up with the plan, went back down, came up with another plan to fool all the Russians into leaving the room, then were able to spring Robin and Steve, and they all managed to like drive away. So you're telling me these 4 kids have outsmarted this Russian base? Let's not get started on why there's a Russian base on American soil underneath Starcourt. They were able to outsmart these Russians and then get out.
And you know, when Hopper is talking to the Russian guy, he says it's the best designed, it's basically a fortress, you know, the best Russian minds designed it, it's defended by, you know, the best Russian military or the best Russian soldiers. Everything about this facility is top of the line, and yet these 4 kids accidentally just, you know, wandered into it. And it just, like, I don't have a problem with kid-centric adventures. I think there's definitely a place for them, but there has to be a certain amount of believability to it.
Yeah,
and
that's all I crave, a little bit of believability.
And this thing where we had this in Gotham with Bruce Wayne, where, you know, Jim Gordon was asking this 14-year-old kid for advice on criminal cases, and was like, no, that would never happen.
That's an excellent example of it.
And that's what this season suffered from. I mean, like, the first season, it was totally believable. They accidentally stumbled onto the supernatural thing. Will's mom was also stumbling onto the supernatural thing at the same time, but they weren't really telling people about it, because weird shit starts happening. You're more likely to be like, oh, I'm losing my mind, and if I tell anybody this, they're going to think I'm losing my mind. Nobody's going to take me seriously. And it was very supernatural, very fantasy-oriented, and therefore a lot more believable as a kid adventure. But having a bunch of kids take on the Russians is sort of reminiscent of Scooby-Doo.
Everything you just said, absolutely right. The very final episode, you know, the kids were sending the guy out on a mission, giving him the nickname Bald Eagle. Erica, one of the greatest characters in this show, like, I really enjoyed Erica. She's talking down to all the adults. That's her thing. Talking down to the kids, that's fine. When she was saying, like, I will get ice cream for life, that's great. That's great rapport between the two of them. She was, I think, much younger than all of them. She's kind of saying these things. But then doing it to the adults, that's where the show kind of loses me. And then this is where the show, like, jumped the shark. The end of the world, or whatever they thought was happening with this huge creature in the final episode, was coming for all of them. And Dustin and his girlfriend, Susie, had, like, they sang an entire song. And that was the only way he would get the key code, get this briefcase to get the keys to blow up the facility underground. And they sang the whole goddamn song.
Yeah.
I think the show's kind of disappeared up its own arse a little bit.
It's kind of similar to, you know, life and death situations. A bomb was about to go off, and the romantic leads stopped to have sex. Yeah. Like, that was kind of on par with what was happening.
Like a PG-13 version of that. So,
it's like, you have people waiting in disguise in Russian military institutions, and you're gonna stop to sing not even a short song, but a freaking long song.
Yeah. That was my rantish way of saying that my least favourite trope in film and TV is kids who know more than adults and treat adults like they know nothing, and that's the hill I'm going to die on.
It's a good hill to die on.
I think that's my calling in this life, to call out moments like that in these films.
It's just not believable, especially when the adults are just kind of like, when Hopper was talking to Elle and Mike, and they were just like, oh, I think we're in trouble, and they were just like mocking him. It's like, he's a fucking sheriff.
Yeah. I'd be like, Mike, get the fuck out of this house. Show me some goddamn respect, or you will never see her ever again.
And he's just like, and Hopper is just kind of like folds and doesn't do anything. And then I can understand kids being disrespectful, kids thinking they know more than adults, but the adults actually acting like the kids know more than them is just like, it's not believable.
And you just said it again. You said it, believability, earlier. I would accept this more. I still wouldn't probably enjoy it, because it's not my type of genre. But if the kids in this show were basically young versions of the Big Bang Theory, like young Sheldon, you know, and they were super smart and they actually could be useful, but they are portrayed to us as kind of dumb, like really dumb kids.
The thing with me, or like my feelings about it, is like the other kids aren't that interesting. Elle is the only one that does anything.
Can I be like completely honest? The 4 main kids from season 1 were the least interesting part of this whole entire season.
Yeah, like Will's brother and his girlfriend, or Nancy, they're really interesting. They're kind of believable. They both want to be reporters. So yeah, sure, I can see them going off and investigating and trying to, you know, make a name for themselves. Steve and Robin, they had a great dynamic.
Even with Dusty and Erica as well, the 4 of them were hilarious.
If they had been in like a different scenario, it would have been great. Yeah. Like, I was really interested in the interplay between those characters, but the storyline they were in was just absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. Will, Mike, and Lucas. They're boring as fuck, and they just stand around. They don't figure anything out. They don't accomplish anything. They are useless in a battle. I mean, every single time a fight scene came up, you had Nancy with her gun and Elle doing like these crazy telekinetic moves. So like, why do we even need the like 3 D&D guys except for Will to complain about how nobody wants to play D&D anymore, and Mike and Lucas to complain about their girlfriend woes.
Dustin did the right thing. He got the hell out of there and moved on to bigger and better storyline. Yeah, the show feels like it's kind of passed them by or moved on from the original 4. I would really like to see Hopper and Winona Ryder in a spin-off show together. I thought their chemistry was great. He was like an R-rated Magnum PI with his like Hawaiian shirt. They were good together. I quite like Billy just by himself. He was obviously drawn into the little kids role, but I thought I've never seen him in anything else, the actor. I quite enjoyed his descent into whatever it was he was descending into. Best moment of the show came in episode 4 when the editor of the newspaper kicked his desk and turned it into a Dutch tilt angle on the camera, which is kind of, if you don't know what a Dutch tilt is, it's the angle shown in like the Adam West Batman TV show when you're looking at the Penguin or something. It's kind of an askew 45-degree angle, or not quite 45-degree angle, to kind of say that this is the villain. And that moment, it was kind of him becoming the villain, quite literally, in front of our eyes. That I thought was great. I would say overrated, overhyped. But, you know, there are people out there that absolutely love this.
I definitely think it's overrated and overhyped. I think a lot of people are into it for the nostalgia more than the story or the characters. I enjoyed the first season. Second and third seasons have been more and more bleh. The central characters are less interesting than their supporting cast.
Yeah.
And there's not much for me to show up for in that case.
I'd agree with that. Just not for me, but I appreciate how good it looks, how good it sounds.
It does look amazing. The production value is excellent.
Yeah, and there are people out there that just absolutely love this kind of thing, but it's not my bag at all.
So Swamp Thing this week, I sort of felt like we were getting back to where the first couple of episodes were headed in. Like, it was a bit more interesting. We had a bit more, like, Swamp Thing was actually in this episode doing stuff.
He can put his hands on a tree and shoot splinters out of it.
Yeah.
Last week he put his hand on a tree and he could see what that tree has seen. So it's nice that we're being drip-fed what his actual powers are. We know this process that happened to him has saved his life, but we don't know what he's actually capable. He hasn't really been tested yet, so it's nice to see him doing some stuff.
Well, I would say that that's what's been missing from the past few episodes. I know we've both been kind of dissatisfied with them because it's been very, very sciencey, very much about Abby Arcane with only occasional glimpses of Swamp Thing himself. We both said how we kind of want to see him test his limits, see what he can do, see where he's at, kind of get into his experience. And we did that a little bit in this one.
Him stepping into that bear trap, ripping it off, was pretty awesome. And chasing down the people that were hunting him in the end. That was great.
I still think we could use less science and more horror in it, and more Swamp Thing-centric stories. I did like that, like, she's slowly telling people that, oh, like, Alec Holland is now this creature thing, and we need to help him and whatever, rather than it just being something that only she knows about. The experiment with Cassidy was a bit interesting. I'm not sure what's going on there or how it's going to resolve itself.
No, he was given this kind of serum that Woodrue made and brought him out of a coma that people thought he would not wake up from. He'd been in the coma for like 12 hours, and the way they were talking about it was if he could be there for 12 years, and he's out of it already. Yeah, his skin was burning, and the bit I thought was most interesting was when that woman, whose name I cannot remember, was like Madame Xanadu or something?
Madame Xanadu.
She put her hands on him and like took away his pain. So I'm interested to see when he wakes up from his kind of sedation, whether he now no longer has pain, but he has some kind of powers. Obviously he's alive and well, and that's pretty good for that little concoction that Woodrue gave him. But the way his skin was kind of glowing, you wonder whether he's going to be capable of interesting things now.
And I'm sort of expecting him to, like, take off into the swamp and find Swamp Thing and have them, like, team up a little bit. I actually expected that to happen in this episode, that, when he ran away, I expected him to, like, run straight to the swamp and, like, feel, like the little girl did.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. He ended up back in the hospital.
I think I would agree with you. I think this episode's getting back to where it needs to be. It's like a balance issue. The episodes need to either have Swamp Thing as the focus, or Swamp Thing needs to be Abby's focus. Because sometimes we've had episodes where Abby's the focus, but her focus is like CDC stuff. Mm-hmm. Or her focus is Avery. Is it Sutherland or Sunderland?
Sunderland.
So she's the show's focus, we get that, but Alec needs to be her focus, at the very least. Or, like you said, I would love a Swamp Thing-centric episode where he is the focus of the episode. I don't know if we're going to get them, but he can't be third in the list of priorities. Abby, then the CDC, then Sunderland, then like him kind of way down, because he's electric. Every scene we get with him is like nothing else on TV, but every scene where he's not in, it's kind of melodrama. It's kind of almost like a soap opera. You've got to remember, this show isn't on CW, which has loads of different types of shows. This is a DC streaming service show. So if we're not getting comic book elements, what's the fucking point, you know? So many of these scenes. Avery Sunderland, he's not exactly Lex Luthor, he's not exactly the Joker, and he's coming up with these schemes and he's murdering people. And you can get that in like any TV show these days, like any CSI or NCIS kind of thing. So we need this to kind of lock on to some comic book elements every episode. He should be the focus, or he should be Abby's focus at the very minimum. Every episode.
I agree with that completely. Particularly because the show's named Swamp Thing. I mean, like, we need more Swamp Thing in Swamp Thing.
Yeah. I mean, we've had whole episodes that has been Abby finding out ways to cure the disease with the CDC. Like, the whole episode.
Yeah.
And this episode, they actually told us the CDC is now out of town now. They are now gone completely. She has remained, obviously, because of Alec and stuff like that, but we need her to be focusing on him. If the show won't focus on him, we need Abby to focus on him.
Yeah.
So that's the balance that needs to be struck, I would say, moving forward.
So in a similar vein, this episode of Krypton was a bit better than the previous ones so far. One thing, because we do find out that Lyta has been brainwashed by Zod, or reconditioned. I thought the way they did that was really cheaply done. I think they should have just showed us that from the beginning, and then later had a moment where Seg discovered it, because it would have added a bit more tension and conflict to everybody's presumption that Lyta has gone to the dark side.
It wasn't really believable, was it, that she'd gone to the dark side? She was, even more so maybe than Seg in season 1, she was we do things the right way. We are, what are they called, Sagittari?
Yeah, Sagittari.
I knew it was something to do with an astrology sign. I was going to say like Capricorn eye or something. Sagittari, every moment we saw her in her training, every moment we saw her talking to her mum, she was about, I'm going to do things the right way. And so for season 2 to begin with her being so far removed from that, we just knew, didn't we?
She killed her commander because to save the rankless.
Yeah. And yet
she's just going to blindly follow Zod as he's...
And didn't she kill that guy because he looked like Seg? Or was that the same guy?
No, it was a different guy.
Yeah, just because he looked like Seg. So, I don't know about you, but not for one moment have I believed this was her. We always knew she was reconditioned.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about the first few episodes of this season, one of the things we brought up was the fact that Lyto's character was... Nothing she was doing was believable. And... So I think it would have been really important for the audience to know from the very get-go that she had been brainwashed. So while everybody, you know, like Adam and everybody is going on being like, Lyta is not who you think she is, you know, she's a bad person, and Seg being like, no, I still believe in her, we would have been then rooting for Seg to be like, yeah, you need to figure this out, there's a puzzle you need to answer. Whereas... it felt like they just sort of shoehorned it in of like, okay, this season we're going to make Lyta really bad, but we still want her and Seg to have a thing, so we've got to figure out a way to like walk back this, you know, bad Lyta vibe. So yeah, she's been brainwashed. That's it. She's not really a bad person.
Yeah, I've got a completely different take on it. I think the show thinks it's smarter than it is. I think we were all fooled by this, and it's gone, she was reconditioned, we got you. But no, you didn't get us. It was entirely unbelievable, and so it was kind of a waste of it felt like it was meant to be this big reveal, this big payoff moment, but it really wasn't.
And how could it not occur to anybody else if they know that people are being reconditioned? Yeah. Why did nobody else think, do you think Lyta's been reconditioned? I mean, she's not really acting like herself anymore.
Question, is she now pregnant with Zod?
Potentially. Yeah. But although, no, because isn't Superman the first natural birth on Krypton in like a really long time? Or did I like pull that out of nowhere?
You may well have pulled that from nowhere, or it may be absolute law. I couldn't tell you. And we're as bad about Superman law as each other, I think. When he turned up and they immediately had sex, and they were kind of... It wasn't that thing where we assume, because he like takes her into a room and the door closes, kind of that seductive manner. We were shown that they were having sex. I just wondered if that was here it is, this is the moment, she's now pregnant with Zod, and that's going to be the storyline in episode 3 or season 3 or something when she starts to show.
The thing I wondered is, because, you know, Zod really wants to get the Codex back, if having the Codex is what he needs to ensure that he actually is born again. But again, I have that issue where, you know, like, she's like, oh my god, I thought I would never see you. But yet, Druzod still exists.
Yeah.
So, Seg had to come back at some point. Like, and everybody knows that Seg had to come back at some point. And nobody talks about the fact of, like, well, you're here, but your dad is missing, and we don't know any, like... it frustrates me.
Yeah.
Like, time travel 101. If something happens to your parents, you're screwed. And they're very unconcerned that, like, Seg was just sort of off. For me, my favorite part of the show is still Seg and Adam. I think,
did you miss Lobo this week?
I did.
I missed Lobo.
I missed Lobo.
Yeah. But Seg and Adam are the beating heart of this show.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think the show really needs to focus on that relationship and that dynamic, because that's where it's strongest, is when the two of them are trying to figure something out, and with their both with very different approaches to things, very different motivations as well, because Adam just wants Superman to be preserved, whereas Seg obviously wants like his planet and his people, and not just his one grandson to survive. So yeah, I'm always quite happy when I see the two of them on screen together. I think this season their relationship is much better framed than it was in the first season. They have a lot better banter, a lot more like funny quips at each other. That's the part that I'm enjoying.
Adam reminds me of John Turturro. He's the kind of guy you can drop in anywhere and he will elevate the scene. I think it was season 1 where he was in a room with like Nyssa and Val and Jax, and that became a really good scene because of his energy.
Yeah.
He's like a little catalyst. He's not the main star of the show, and then maybe when it's all said and done, you might not remember him first because he's not Zod.
He's the first one that pops into my head.
Fair enough. Every scene he's in, he just elevates it for me. He's adding this kind of energy that no one else does. Lighter, she's quite low energy. Zod is quite low energy. Like Jax is definitely low energy. Val's low energy, but he can just bring people up a few gears.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is that all of the other characters are so serious all the time, and Adam is very much a 21st century American. And so you throw that into the mix, and like all of the formality and structure and everything of their society, he's just like, whatever.
It's very true, actually.
Yeah.
I can imagine him being dropped in a couple of Game of Thrones situations where the same would happen, like the 21st century American in that situation. Yeah, I mean, this is a better episode, but again, this show isn't really changing my life, unfortunately.
No, it's not. It still has a long way to go.
Right, now we're going to talk about Superman Shazam, the return of Black Adam. Any thoughts? It's very short and sweet.
Having studied the 3-act structure, I can usually pinpoint and be like, oh, like we're in Act 3 now, it's going to end soon.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, we've only been like sitting here for like 20 minutes, so, and like you even commented on it. It's weird that felt like Act 3. I was expecting the credits to roll up, and then the credits rolled up.
I didn't really have many comments on it. I mean, it was only 25 minutes. More just some observations, I guess. Superman has a vulnerability to magic, which I wasn't really aware of.
I think it's cool, though. I mean,
very cool. Yeah, awesome. But
something besides kryptonite that he is vulnerable to.
Yeah, they don't often talk about it, do they?
No.
That was quite cool. So Black Adam, he was fighting for most of this using magic, and he was he'd met his match in some regards. Yeah, I think Superman needs more kind of vulnerability in general. So this was something
or at the
that
very least
me.
Opponents that like are evenly matched for him. The Black Adam was pretty evenly matched. They each had their own strengths and weaknesses, and there was a bit of banter back and forth of like, oh, I can do this. It's like, yeah, but I can do this and you can't.
I don't know about you, but I felt this was a very condensed version of the entire Zachary Levi Shazam origin story we just got, live action story, and it made me wonder. It was all I was thinking about, to be honest, for about 3/4 of this. Were we supposed to have Black Adam as the villain in that film? And basically DC have said, let's create 2 films instead. Let's have the Shazam film and the Black Adam film, which has supposedly been in pre-production for about 4 years now. I think he was attached before Zachary Levi was even attached. The Rock, obviously. So I think it would have been an infinitely better film if Black Adam had been the villain, The Rock as Black Adam in the Zachary Levi film we've just had. And I kind of feel a bit cheated now. I'm assuming this is closer to some kind of source material than the Zachary Levi film. And so they've just purposefully either created a new villain, the Mark Strong character, or roped in one of his other villains, tweaked the storyline somehow, and we've been shortchanged the result because they thought they were going to give us 2 films, like almost a 2-parter, and now we're probably not getting the Rock film, so we've just been shortchanged. That's all I feel. Does any of that kind of make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I don't know if having Black Adam in it would have really changed the impact of Shazam.
Yeah, there's every chance that's correct.
I mean, it's hard to predict with something like that. It would depend on how much other stuff changed as well to go along with it.
Yeah.
Maybe have a sub-boss and then a big boss kind of scenario that might have worked really well. Yeah, I'm really not hugely invested in Japan.
No, me neither.
I think he's like like probably one of the lamest superheroes there are.
I probably agree with that. Yeah, I would watch The Rock. You know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would
watch
The Rock do anything.
Yeah,
he's amazing.
So yeah, I quite like the animation, quite clean, quite modern looking. Tim Daly, the voice of Superman, he was the voice of Superman in all of the kind of animation I watched as a kid.
So yeah, apparently the character Captain Marvel was created in 1939 by Wiz Comics for Fawcett Comics. I don't understand that, but Fawcett Comics was the publisher, and I guess Wiz Comics was the title of the thing that he was in. Then DC got upset because they were like, dude, that's just a Superman copy, you can't do that. So there was this huge legal battle. Fawcett Comics eventually ceased publishing anything to do with Captain Marvel, and he didn't appear for like over a decade. Then Marvel comes along and trademarks the name, because I mean, why not? Captain Marvel, Marvel Comics, it sort of goes together. I think this was actually before they created the Captain Marvel character. So then in 1972, DC acquired Captain Marvel Shazam and started publishing things, which of course Marvel got upset about, and so they sent a cease and desist to DC. It was like, you can't use that name, that's our name, we trademarked it. So DC was like, alright, we'll use Shazam, and they did kind of a sneaky thing where they're like, Shazam, the original Captain Marvel. And of course, Marvel was like, no, you can't do that. You cannot use Captain Marvel at all. So then they changed it to Shazam, the world's mightiest hero, and then used the New 52 relaunch to rebrand him entirely as Shazam, so DC no longer has Captain Marvel. And that is the answer as to whether or not it is Shazam or Captain Marvel. It is Shazam.
The Geekly edutainment.
I just think it's funny that like all of these little comic book companies are squabbling over their characters and what wording you can use, and it's just
Captain DC doesn't have the same ring to it.
It really doesn't, especially considering that like DC just stands for, it would be like Captain Detective Comics. Yeah. It's not quite the same.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Batman's Captain DC anyway. The house that Batman built, that's what DC is. So yeah, I quite enjoyed that. I mean, it's 25 minutes long. I was assuming it'd be like an hour and a half.
Yeah,
so literally caught us completely off guard.
Yeah, I was expecting like a full feature-length film, which is usually what we watch. This was part of like a showcase thing, so there were like 3 or 4 25-minute episodes on it. We only watched the Return of Black Adam, though.
Yeah, I think there's the Spectre, Joan Hex, Green Arrow on it as well. I think it's quite good for 21st century people, low attention spans, just a little
Actually, I was kind of glad that it was only 25 minutes, because I was sitting there thinking, I don't know if I really want to like sit still through an hour and a half long film, especially an animated film.
The one thing I learned from that Shazam film was that I just don't like Billy Batson or Shazam, so I was quite glad it was 25 minutes for that reason. I think that's all we've got time for this week.
So follow us on Twitter at GeekNerdPod. We're doing lots of exciting things. There's going to be giveaways and all sorts of stuff happening because we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary and on 5,000 followers. As of right now, we are only 25 people away from 5,000, which is super exciting for me. I've been like following this for days.
We're on Facebook too, facebook.com/thegeekly. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/geeknerd.
And we're on YouTube. Just search for The Geekly. I think we're like the second one that pops up. We're working on getting like a customized URL thing to make it easier so we can just rattle it off for you guys. But at the moment it's a bunch of like letters and numbers and weird characters. So yeah, just search for The Geekly. And very soon we will have a website coming out, geeknerdpod.com. Anyway, so yeah, that's our week. See you around.
Sayonara.